I call the Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
Mr Speaker, I'm going to deal with this legislation in a more wide-ranging and general sense at this point, and I know that Canterbury colleagues from this side of the House will deal with the particularity of it, especially as we move through stages. I want to say that the Labor position at this point is that we will support the legislation in the first reading to Select Committee, and we will see what the outcome of that Select Committee produces, and we reserve our position at that point. I will say, to be generous to the government, that we did suggest some days ago, when we had very short notice of this legislation and 2 short interactions with the Minister, that a Select Committee process may be appropriate. And we did offer, I think, through the Shadow Leader of the House, Mr Mallard, the process of a 1-day or a 24-hour Select Committee period at the very least, to allow the key actors, the key stakeholders in Christchurch to have a say in respect of this. For instance, the local authorities. For instance, the Unified Citizens Group, CanCern, Ngāi Tahu and other stakeholders. So I say to the Minister, I am pleased that he has come to the party in respect of that. But I just want to observe a couple of things. This legislation gives the Minister, and there has been a lot of talk about earthquake czars, a chief executive that didn't get an appointment, that they would be somehow an earthquake czar, or Mr Ombler, who holds the position, I think, for a number of weeks or months as the earthquake czar. I say to Mr Brownlee that he has wartime powers, and his government was given those wartime powers by the House to act appropriately, and we did that in the spirit of non-partisanship. And I just want to outline for the House, so there is no mistake, how Labor colleagues have treated this whole disaster and tragedy in Canterbury, because there is no politics in this issue from our point of view. And we have, unlike the normal rules of engagement in this House, when we see an area of criticism in respect of the government, you fire a media statement or a shot across the bows, you go public and you deal with it through the public arena. In general, we have attempted in respect of this Minister to interact at a personal level, me personally or colleagues. If there has been no action, then we have tended to write to the Minister, and that's the number of letters that we have and interactions on paper we've had with the Minister since the 22nd of February, second event, up until today. And then if we feel strongly about it, at that point we would enter the public arena. And we would do that with some reluctance. We have only done that on a number of occasions, specifically the drama and difficulty that business has had in trying to gain entry to the red zone over weeks. We interacted with Mr Brownlee and Mr Carter personally. It took us weeks then to get a reply to the letter, and we were told that we were wrong. Okay, that is life. That was proved incorrect. We were right when business people, for the first time in my living memory, picked up placards and stormed barricades. I say to the Minister that we have approached this legislation in good faith. We have provided quite a wide range of written advice on our point of view, which is not just our point of view, by the way, but advice that has been generated through our communities. We are constituent members of Parliament in Canterbury. We do not have a monopoly on all knowledge with respect to this disaster or with respect to this legislation. We have gone out and canvassed our communities, and we have learnt from them. And the key, I say to Mr Brownlee, and I acknowledge there have been some amendments. I note that after a number of interventions by myself and colleagues, he does believe there needs to be, for instance, on Clause 4, a definition of the CBD, which is only appropriate. After a number of interventions, he has listened. I thank him for his generosity and for his spirit in respect of that. But what have we learnt from our communities? What do Cantabrians want? Well, I think they want what all of us want. They want detailed, robust planning to be put in place. But they also want, and I know we've prattled on ad nausea about this, they also want a large say in what their town, because this is a Canterbury bill, their cities, their province looks like going forward. And I know there are those who say that, well, it's a bit PC, that's a bit woolly, we can't have people impeding progress by going on and endlessly consulting. Well, I say to the Minister to look across at the most contemporary example we have that is on the other side of my electorate, a local authority, smaller in size, yes, that has embarked on a series of consultation processes which were done over a 3 to 4 month period, because of course in the first event it took 2 to 3 months to actually get the geotech information out, as is appropriate, to work out what the hell you're going to be able to do as a town and a local authority. That local authority then drilled past politicians and interest groups, didn't bypass them, included them, but drilled past them right to the grassroots of their community, and did a really basic thing: asked people what they wanted. Now, I know Mr Brownlee has a view, and I share his view, that in no way do we want to impede or delay the process of getting people their lives, their houses, their routines back, their livelihoods, their jobs back. And I accept that. But I have, on a number of occasions, invited him to look at Waimakariri District Council, where over a period of 3 months they went from basically no plan to, prior to the 26th of February, and had it not been for that tragedy, to hitting the go button and having meetings with their community where they can tell people you will be first and you will be last in terms of getting your life and your house back. And they wait today for a cheque and for the tick-off from the government, and they can, and some temporary housing, and they can hit the go button. And I attended, Minister, some very tough meetings in my community, that half of my electorate, where men were in tears and people potentially could have done dangerous things to themselves. And I mean that in all sincerity. So much so that people were checked on the following day. And they were shocked because it may take for some 4 years to get their house back. But the very interesting thing was that the council they were in support of. Because they own the good, the bad and the ugly, they were consulted. It does not necessarily mean they agree with everything the council has done. But that process is efficient. It was done over 3 to 4 months. And the fact that they can hit the go button today is because they have the community support. They treated the community with respect as intelligent human beings, and they involved them from the grassroots up. And that's one of the pleas and one of the central points we want to make in this legislation. It is not good enough, because Mr Brownlee is the earthquake czar. He holds the pen over the chief executive and all he or she does. It is not good enough, in our view, to have an appointed panel of 20 people and expect those people to be representative of the community, and therefore to say we've consulted a few times this panel. I think originally in the draft bill we saw it was 6 times from memory that they would be consulted, and to say that's good enough. Because if you don't, and overseas experience shows us this, you look at New Orleans, they floundered for damn near 2 years, and then they decided to involve the community and progress took off. We don't want anybody with the ability to throw a vexatious spanner in the works. No one wants to delay this process. However, we do expect, and we have learnt from other jurisdictions, both here and overseas, that when you do involve your community and you treat them with respect and you do give them, as the Minister said, accurate information, not idle speculation that we have had over months, like 10,000 people moving from a particular area, that communities will buy into it and you will have a faster and efficient process out the back of it. So that is one of the central points that we raise in this legislation. There are other issues over checks and balances in respect of the particular power that the Minister has, and let's be under no illusion. This authority will have enormous power to get things done, and if that power is exercised appropriately and correctly, that is all for the good. What we are concerned about is that there is a balance, there are some checks and balances, so that people cannot be good people who are not vexatious, who are concerned about their well-being and the well-being of their community, are not mowed over the top of. And I say to Mr Brownlee that he talks often about anybody who criticises, anybody who raises their head, particularly in relation, as we saw with the business issues I talked about earlier, anybody who says there may be a better way, that one, they're being political, and two, they're impeding progress. Well, I say to Mr Brownlee, we are not being political, but we do not do away with our right to represent our community and say what we believe and represent that community in a robust way and to raise issues of concern. And if that is impeding progress, then guilty as charged. But I say in respect of the business community, as I said to Mr Brownlee, we're protecting progress. Those business people that we lend our voice to are our progress, for instance. We were not impeding it, we were protecting it. Without those business people, we don't have a CBD. So I say to Mr Brownlee, we approach this in good faith, and we look forward to a robust discussion, and we look forward to Mr Brownlee and his government perhaps listening to the representations we make on behalf of our community.
I call the Honourable Minister Kate Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr.